Hello, guys. Hope everybody is doing well. I am going to be sharing some hard truths today about how I see the situation, how I see the situation in Ukraine, in the Middle East as well. There's been some developments, not just with the militant attack on Syria, which is also very concerning, but it seems that Israel more or less is going to get what they want in regards to Lebanon and Hezbollah. They have a deal coming up in about 60 days, and if that deal goes through, then Hezbollah has to move north of the Litani River, which was Israel's goal. It will basically take Hezbollah out of action, and will put the Lebanese army in between Israel and Hezbollah. And kind of any actions Hezbollah will take from then on will not be either as impactful or will not happen at all. So Israel's pretty much going to get what they want, regardless of how many casualties they suffered. I highly doubt it's anywhere near the casualties that they have inflicted on Lebanon and Hezbollah, especially with the pager attack. As cruel as the pager attack was, I believe it was very effective. I was actually quite impressed with the ingenuity of it. Um, And again, Israel has no more reputation left to lose, so they're just doing what needs to be done. And that's what you gotta do, because at the end of the day, whoever wins is the one who can decide what's moral or what's not moral. Whoever wins, if you wipe out, all of your opponents, then you get to write the history. Like even in Australia, Australians literally went from one part of the island to another part in Tasmania and just slaughtered every Aboriginal person they could see at one point. But it's not, yes, like, here and there, and there's some people that kind of remember it, but most people just don't care anymore. And the people that did that are gone. And, it's certainly part of the Aboriginal history here, but just in general, people don't really mind, they don't really care. Same as in America with the indigenous population there or in other countries. Just the terrible things that people have done because they have won. If the Aboriginal people have won, they could make you remember what you did to them, and they'll remind you again and again how awful the white people were. But because they're a minority in this country, because they've been pretty much like subdued, because they lost the war, because they weren't like a fighting people, they were more survivalist, if anything. They weren't warriors like, say, the Maoris in New Zealand. And you can see the contrast between just the self-esteem and also the governmental power that the Maoris hold compared to the Aboriginal people in Australia. Because the Maoris fought back and pretty much won the war, they had to be ultimately converted to Christianity and kind of like uh, convinced to join the Western world rather than being forced into it and enslaved and had your children taken away and whatnot. Typical, colonial things. So you gotta win. You gotta win the war, which kind of brings me to Russia and Ukraine. And it seems like what's happening is that Russia was unfortunately bluffing. Russia's bluff has been, and people who support Russia, I'm gonna want to hear it, and I've already been banned from some Telegram channels recently just for saying the truth that the action Russia's taking right now is totally irrelevant. So Russia's response to missiles being fired by NATO countries into their territory is to just do more of the same of what they've been doing. They're just attacking Ukraine, which they should have been doing anyway. Like there's nothing, at least there shouldn't be anything left in Ukraine to attack that Russia shouldn't have attacked already. So doing more of the same is just making the people in NATO rub their hands together and just like go, great. And how much more damage can we inflict on Russia before, Ukraine kind of expires and is completely, destroyed. So they're talking about having the age of conscription drop to 18. Of course, they don't care about Ukraine. It doesn't matter what happens to Ukraine. The only reason why I said that dropping a nuclear bomb on Ukraine will make a difference is it will make the West take Russia seriously. They would think, oh, hey, Russia can escalate quite drastically if they need to. We should be way more careful about how much we escalate from now on. Because Russia can take a big leap, which they don't want, because, again, America doesn't want a direct confrontation with Russia. They don't want to take direct damage because it will make them weaker and it will make them lose against China, who is the ultimate boss for America. Russia's just like in between. They want to weaken Russia as much as possible at the cost of Ukraine, but they don't want a direct confrontation, which is why Russia should take the initiative, put the ball back in their court, and strike a NATO country on NATO soil, or at least hit like an American base, or hit one of their ships, or do something. To do what Yemen has done, at least. Like, that's the bare minimum. And look, I'll give Russia a little bit of a benefit of a doubt. Like, maybe they are planning something, maybe there's something in the works, but just currently as it stands, Russia's just completely cocked out. They just have. And all it's going to do is it's going to lead to more escalation by the West. The West is going to see, okay, so we can damage Russia, and they're just going to keep hitting Ukraine, which is like fine by us. We don't give a shit about Ukraine. We don't give a shit about the people there. So let's produce more missiles. Let's get like longer range missiles. Let's start striking Russia proper next. Now it's only approved to strike Russia in Kursk. Let's start, killing the production facilities and all this kind of stuff. Maybe give Ukraine a nuke. And if Russia and Ukraine just nuke each other, that would be great, Because that's like an estimated guess. And people think, oh, it's crazy if it will. No, well, if you're basing it on what actions Russia has taken so far, Russia has shown an inability to strike NATO itself with conventional weapons, or to harm NATO itself. So if it can't harm NATO, then it's probably going to be too scared to nuke NATO, even if Ukraine nukes them. They'll nuke Ukraine. That's, they'll do that. But again, no one gives a shit about Ukraine, right? the ideal situation would be Ukraine nuking Russia and Russia nuking Ukraine back, and that's it. That being the end of the war, because there'll be as much damage inflicted as possible. Ukraine will be completely gone, but again, who cares about that? So there's a kind of like some black-pilled hard truths, hard realities that I'm seeing on the ground. And even this attack by the militants, apparently they are Turkish-backed militants. Turkey is part of NATO, so they have a vested interest in seeing Russia weakened. And remember, Turkey helped Ukraine deliver drones to them, probably had more information that they gave them. Even though they're trying to play both sides a little bit, they're not big fans of, at least in word, they're not big fans of what's happening in Palestine, but Turkey is a bit of a thing. So that's what's happening when you're weak, is people are going to start taking advantage of you, and people are going to start pushing you back in different places, creating more problems for you, and it's only going to get worse and worse. This facade, and I never believed the facade. I knew Russia had like lots of problems, but them just cucking out this way just shows how many more problems there must be underneath the surface that I haven't realized. And those problems might be practical in terms of just their capacity to fight this war. Even though, okay, they're winning against Ukraine and everything, but when it comes to a war against NATO, they might not have the capacity that everyone thinks they do. And it also makes me think, and this is just speculation, that maybe there's a weakness in the political structure that makes them scared to go to war with NATO and risk, which will be their own lives. Because if there is a lead up to a nuclear war, that's going to start affecting the political class instead of just the people that are fighting, the regular soldiers. And that's nothing new. It's nothing new with Russia or anywhere else in the world. Like, that's been the truth. Like, old men, uh, well, young men die off in wars while old men argue. That's like the typical kind of saying, right? And again, it's nothing new. So I hope Russia finds its balls and does what needs to be done. That's obvious. It's obvious what needs to be done. And again, it's either fear or practicality that's holding them back, because they had the rhetoric. They had Medvedev and all these people come in and tell them how they'll be targeting NATO countries and NATO sites, and now they seem to just continue striking Ukraine, energy infrastructure, whatnot, just the typical things that they've always done. So they just completely ignored what they've said, which was a bluff, which was called by the West. And there's this whole thing about how Russia's playing chess, and chess isn't a very good game anymore. Like, chess is pretty much a solved game, which means that the people that play chess now well are just good at memorizing things. They don't actually think strategically anymore in terms of chess. Like, if you want to win, because the computer's already worked out the ultimate move you can make in every situation. So all you have to do is just memorize as many like openings and as many positions as you can, and just make the optimal move that you remember you need to make in that situation, and you win. So there's only like a few different paths, and you can try to throw your enemy off with doing something weird, but in general, it's just a memorizing game now. Whereas poker, I would say, takes a bit more intelligence still. You have to work out what your opponent has. There's a lot of psychology and things like this. So, and America invented poker. So, and that's the game they are playing. They're playing a poker game. They're seeing what Russia is doing. They're analyzing it, and they're acting quite logically, I believe. I think all the actions they made, providing long strike, it's a logical progression, and even giving nukes to Ukraine, it's a logical progression on the weakness that Russia has showing. And that's just how it is. And yeah, people can cry and moan, but it's not going to change the reality on the ground. And it's quite sad because, again, I am adamantly on Russia's side now, but that's the situation that you have to face and act accordingly. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. All the best.